All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the dojo. Come take a seat on the mat, kick off your shoes. We've got a real master with us today. And if you don't know him, then you've been living in a cave somewhere. Ryan Glitsky, a lot of us know him by Moose. Like I said, if you don't know him, go Google his name. You're going to see a bunch of good podcasts out there, and you should go back and listen to him for sure. So, Ryan, man, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. Looking forward to talking some whitetails here.
Yeah, for sure. So you're over in PA and you're doing big woods public land. How many
Mhm.
years have you actually been doing the big woods public land stuff?
I think I think I just got done with my 32nd year hunting. But be honest, I've hunted a mix of like hill country, farm country, flood control, mountains, big woods. Over the years, I've been a little bit everywhere. Probably in my early 20s, somewhere around there, I did like started getting into the mountain stuff. Kind of got back out of it, got into the more hill country and farm country flood bomb stuff where I was concentrating. And then it just got to a point that the quality of whitetails weren't there. So I started going for the big woods mountains. At first, it was overwhelming to really start to dig into it, but I think it's been maybe 6 solid years now
Okay.
around there. Might be my seventh season going in. It has been strictly pretty much, mountains and big woods. I will hunt some farm country, here and there, but my love, my passion, there's just something about the big woods and mountains now.
Yeah, yeah. So what's the difference between mountains and hill country? Because like I hear Wisconsin, I've been to Wisconsin, I've hunted the
Yeah.
hills over there. And to me, I'm from Michigan. I saw those hills and I'm like, these are mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so where I live in Pennsylvania, I get a lot of different type of diversity of habitat and terrain. And like my farm country with slash hill country, you're talking maybe a couple 100 foot of elevation, difference possibly. And I'm around a lot of flood bottoms too in those areas. Now, when I get in the mountains, you're talking, now somebody out west would be like, these are little hills too, but I'm in that 2,000, 2,500,
Oh yeah.
3,000 in around there, fluctuating around there for my mountain big woods type stuff. I'm in around, just it all depends on my location. I cover a very large tract of Pennsylvania. It's not for me to maybe travel an hour and a half, 2 hours to a hunting location, just for look for the quality of bucks. Plus, with hunting pressure, you get on podcast, your name gets out there, so you kind of gotta, bounce around a little bit and kind of fly on the radar locally.
Oh yeah, yeah. Have you ever ran into something like that where you got recognized like in a parking lot or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been too bad in the mountains because it's crazy in the mountains. You do tend to not see as many hunters because it's the mountains are a little different.
Mhm.
I think it scares some people. You'll see people at the parking lot stuff like that, but to get back in there, I think people are a little intimidated by it.
Mhm.
So the mountains aren't too bad for me running into people, but where I get into my problems personally for the social media stuff, the public land around the farm country, hill country do get a lot of pressure. I have actually lost spots because of stuff on here, even keeping it on a low key, stuff like that. Guys figure it out. I've had some fantastic spots lost. It's a part of it. Be honest with you, it really doesn't bother me because I've been hunting public land for 30 plus years. I've seen it all. You
Yeah.
spend time, how many times I've had hunts ruined, places ruined. So to be honest, it really doesn't bother me because how I look at it is I have backups for backups. So end of the day, it really doesn't bother me.
Yeah. So right now we're in February. A lot of people are thinking postseason scouting.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people aren't too, which is interesting, you know. And so one thing I'm starting here is it's a monthly podcast called Do This Now. So it's a 15-minute podcast where I'm saying, okay, do this month to get ready to this will help you get your buck in October, or November,
Mhm.
whenever you get
Yeah.
it. And so for February, it's actually starting to look at maps
Yeah.
and even getting out there. So this is a
Yeah.
perfect time to have a larger, podcast for people to go to and listen about that. And that's one thing I think, I mean, I've learned a ton from you, and we hunt different terrain,
Mhm.
but and I'm saying this, I'm kind of preemptively saying this so when people are listening going, well, I don't hunt mountains. Well, you still have features. It may
Yes.
not be this huge, elevation, but even an elevation of like where I'm at sometimes, and I do hunt out of state mostly,
Yeah.
but even in Illinois, like just even a 10-foot elevation is something that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
and they're going to use it in a similar fashion. And you can take this and apply it to your area. And I do like the fact that you've hunted really all terrain. Like
Yeah.
you're all over the place. You've hunted
Yeah.
Iowa quite a bit. And
Yeah.
man, I heard a podcast the other day about some of the bucks that you took out over there. That's crazy. You've taken some monsters out of Iowa.
Yeah. Iowa's pretty special place. Like you're saying about like how can people take this like the mountains, but to me, how I'm always looking at my scouting is it, we're talking about, 2,000, 3,000 feet of elevation. How does somebody in farm country that has very little bit of elevation change, maybe? That's not how I look at it. How I look at it is diversity.
Yeah.
Diversity is everywhere. Diversity can be in the mountains. It could be in the prairies of wherever out west. I'm always looking for that structured edge of diversity, stuff like that. I don't care if you're in farm country, hill country, big woods, mountains. You start to find that diversity in habitat and put some things together. Typically around those areas where I find really great, really great action for whitetails in general.
Can you give some examples of that diversity, what that looks like when you're out in the woods?
I mean, like I said, that does come down to location dependent.
Yep.
Say the big woods mountains. I'm always looking for, clear cuts, mountain laurel, anything like that. A ridge with greenbriers on it or something like that. It could be a river bottom, a creek bottom, any kind of structure like that. There could be some diversity. And I always tell guys, I'm always looking for the habitat and terrain diversity coming together in one location when I come for my stand setups. But when you get in a farm country, Nat, I mean, you look at any type of farm country, even in the Midwest, you're going to have all your blocks of timber, your inside corners, your hedgerows, your overgrown pastures. Like me, if you get in a farm country, you give me an overgrown pasture, like an overgrown field, man, that is money. I've killed some great bucks here in PA, actually hunting farm country, killing them out of areas like that. But that's just a ton of diversity. When you look at an area like that, that's the kind of stuff I'm always trying to hone in on.
Are you hunting right on the line of the diversity? Like where a couple different things meet together? Are you kind of just focusing in that area?
It all depends. It's situational, but say
Yep.
like you have a situation like that, like you have an overgrown pasture, it's a few acres, it's a fantastic bedding area in the rut. Then bucks are going to be in there, look for does, pushing does in there. Maybe the setup says I do hunt that, or do I come off of that? All that hot sign might be around them edge, around that transition. Maybe there's a creek crossing going into that location, coming
Mhm.
off a ridge point or something, a bedding area. That's like there's two areas. Say you have that, and there's another adjoining property has great bedding cover or food. What's connecting all that stuff? Maybe it's a great creek crossing. It's just situational how I look at it. I always keep telling guys I'm very open minded. I do not have a set of rules when it comes to this. When it comes to a stand location, you go in an area, you get that sixth sense, you start breaking that down to micro level and start figuring all that out.
So I hear you say, and I actually hear everybody who I look at as successful hunters will say, hey, it's situational. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad you say it because I remember kind of coming up and thinking, just give me the magic recipe. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
And so badly just wanted to hear, give me the 1, 2, 3 step, because I
Yeah.
think there's like a pressure of, I mean, if you're trying to take this serious, there's a pressure of we want to get there as fast as possible and
Yeah.
start putting these deer down. And so, I think I just want to say that it's a journey because you have to learn each situation, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I tell guys this is it's a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, you can get blessed and you can be born in Iowa and have a 200-acre farm in Van Buren County.
yeah,
Well, you're gonna be sitting pretty damn good, but 99% of it, we're not going to get that luxury. So you got to start. Like I told people, it's a great foundation. We'll learn there's a lot of educational tools out there for your foundation. But you got to put boots on the ground. You put ass time in that tree and, learn from the whitetails themselves. I've been doing this for 30 years. You've been doing it for quite a long time.
mhm.
Man, it takes decades to really, and we never master it. We never will ever master this. But you do get to a point where you can be consistent and be successful on, whatever type buck you choose to, your goals are to go after a while.
Yep. So, I know that part of your strategy is boots on the ground, actually a big part of it.
Yeah.
If anybody, Moose, what is your full handle at Instagram?
Moose 1720.
1720. Look them up if you're not already following them, because on the weekend, I mean, you put it out there. You're such a great teacher. You'll walk through what you're doing on the
Yeah.
weekend, what you're looking for,
Yeah.
and you're out there every weekend doing that. So that's a big part of your strategy. Cameras is another part
Yeah.
of your
Yeah.
strategy. And I probably shouldn't talk for you. I should probably just get out of the way. Do you want to kind of lay out part of what stages of your strategies are, like what you're doing?
Like starting right now in the postseason, it is like I do what everybody else does. We look at maps, stuff like that. I'm always looking for new areas to venture off to. But I like to do is I split my postseason in two different ways. I like to go back into areas I've already had experience with, put boots on the ground. If I had ass time in a tree, I like to go back to those areas and break it down more in a micro level. And then I always like to go to brand new areas or maybe areas I've only been into 1 year, a little bit of scouting in, still on that kind of that macro level. I'm still working on those areas. In the postseason, it's boots on the ground. You're trying to find the spot or whatever you're doing, but I'm always looking for good camera locations this time of year. Typical how I do it, I run multiple mapping apps. I'll run Onyx for my primary scouting. It's a shit show on there. There are just pins everywhere. Then what I'll do is I will keep like a Spartan Forge or Hunt Stand, whatever it is, my secondary. Say I go into a spot, like say it's an already existing spot. I'm already been in there for a couple of years. I'm in there breaking it down. I find a really good camera location in there. I'll mark it on my Onyx. I mark it on my Spartan Forge or whatever app I'm using. And then even on the macro level of the other areas, I find areas of interest. I will drop pins on my Onyx and I will drop pins on that secondary also. It keeps that secondary one clean. That only gets tree stands, cameras, and scrape. That cameras on. That's all that one's for. So that when the season comes in, that makes it a little simpler looking at that stuff. But this time of year, I'm just kind of piecing all that together right now. Going into new areas, going into old areas, breaking all that down. It's just, I'm be honest with you, my morning start out, I have a spot of interest I go to. I get there sometimes I don't, like this past weekend, I know an area where I feel pretty confident. I'm kind of in the kill tree. I'm pretty close. I've never really sat this January. I've been in this area a couple times last couple seasons, but how I like to do it now on a micro level, this spot, I've been running cameras last couple years. A lot of good bucks in this area, but I don't know why they're in this area, if that makes sense. So I took Saturday, made a big loop, 4 mile loop in this area where I'm thinking steep, nasty terrain. That's telling me those deer be able to get some age on them past rifle season because of this nasty terrain. That was a great security cover in my head. So that's what I'll do, something like that. I'll go in there and I'll confirm that, which I did Saturday. Steep, nasty, ton of deer sign, a lot of oaks in there, found an old shed. Everything came together like, okay, that was the final piece of that puzzle to why this area is going to be so good. I like, okay, you found it, but I still want to know the why. It's very important, the why in a lot of situations. A spot might look good, may hunt good, but if you don't have all the pieces and answer all those questions, maybe that spot's only good for a year and you blow it up because you didn't have that one piece of the puzzle. Your access, your entry, your exit's wrong for that area. You didn't realize that because you didn't have that one piece of the puzzle. Yeah, you went in that 1 year successful, then it started dying off because you blew the area up. That's a little thing, little details I like to break down.
Yeah, yeah. And we should let people know. I mean, you're primarily scouting for the rut.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I'm primary rut. Last October 20th through November through Thanksgiving,
yep,
basically.
yep.
Yeah,
Which I think is great for guys who are listening, who are looking to get like maybe break that threshold, get that first 120.
yeah,
Start putting some bucks on the wall. The rut is, I mean, I think it sounds like lately there's been this like kind of trend to get away from thinking that the rut is like, I don't
yeah.
get it.
Drives me nuts because if you open the record books up,
Yeah, it's my
there's a
bread and
reason.
butter.
Yeah, there's a reason. Hey, can they be killed in September?
Yeah.
Of course. But I think just the overall deer movement, it's hard to beat the pre-rut and rut.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, if that's what you're looking to do is start getting on some bigger bucks, that's a good time to do it. So everything that we're talking about today is going to be applicable for you to do that. So so you talked about going into you're looking at maps, you're visiting places that you are familiar with to get to know them better. You're looking at some new spots. Um and you're trying to find the why. I think that hitting on that is so important because for so long I just wanted to find the sign, right? Oh,
Yeah,
I got the sign.
yeah,
This is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And so many years I was disappointed because
Yes.
I would go there and maybe that sign's being laid down at a time that I'm not there, when I'm
Yes.
hunting.
Yeah.
Expand on the why a little bit, I guess. Like, I think like what I've heard in the past is, oh man, I'm trying to think if it might be Josh Prophet talks about like a 3-question why. I can't remember what it
Yeah.
is, but
Yeah. I think Josh says it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So what are you looking for when you see the sign? Are you trying to figure out like the bed to feed path, or what are you looking for?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Like I said, say we go in into an area and I see a ton of hot sign. So I'm gonna ask myself, why is it here? First off, what's the location? Anytime, a lot of times, like say, perfect example, you go into an area, you get in a creek bottom or low area. Everybody knows you get in them lower areas in the creek bottom, you find a ton of sign,
Hmm.
rubs and scrapes and everything else. Well, people don't understand why. Why is all that sign down there? Well, you think about it. Most of your activity is nighttime, of
Hmm.
course. Where are all your thermals pulling at night? In them creek bottoms. So
Yeah.
those bucks can run them creek bottoms and smell every damn doe above on top of all those ridges at nighttime. Especially if there's not a big primary food source like a maybe a cut cornfield or something like that on some private adjacent property. You'll see it a lot of time in them lower creek bottoms, and that's a lot of times you'll see is that's a lot of nighttime activity. So I tell myself, is this just nighttime activity because of thermal pull at night down in these areas? These bucks are cruising these bottoms looking for does, or is there a possibility of some daylight activity? Say more, it sets up more of a rut, maybe a rut hub, a travel hub.
Mhm.
Okay, because the hub is a big word right now, of course, out there, and you got to watch that because it could be just nocturnal sign down there, and that could kill you. Now, if I get in a really good primary, an area, a great hub, travel hub, I'll start to break that down to why. Okay, so I get in there, I see all the sign. Okay, I look at terrain. Okay, this is a pretty good hub. I can come in here, hunt to win the thermals. I see this sign. Now the why. Okay, there's clear cuts on top of all these points. There's a half mile away there's a private ag field, so I'll start connecting those dots. You start, okay, I got the bed, I got the food, or I got bed to bed to bed. Sometimes I'll get an area where
Mhm.
there's 3 or 4 clear cuts, or maybe the points are covering greenbriers. It's doe bedding. So you get a situation like that where that buck's going to drop down that point, he's going to drop down that point, he's going to keep crisscrossing through that general location searching for does, and he's laying down sign in that bottom. So that all kind of plays into my why there. You can reverse that and put it on top of a ridge. Say I get on top of a ridge, it's blown up with scrapes. There's a big scrape line across there. Okay, why? On that end, north end of this, this ridge, there's a clear cut. On the southern end, there's some private ag going out. That all plays in. Like I said, when we said about situational, that just pops in my head because there's
Yeah.
so many different situations. I see that. Maybe that point's dropping down into a thick, nasty, creek bottom of mountain laurel. And the top of the ridge there's a big oak flat. That all plays into the why. Like I
Mhm.
said, I can go down to all these things pop in my head as we're talking here because I've seen 100 different situations, and they're all going to be different. They're all going to give me a different why, but I'm all going to come back to the same. I may come back to the same answer to the kill tree, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. I'm going to bring that into the kill tree, and when I tell guys, I don't care if I'm hunting low. I don't care if I'm hunting high. I don't care if I'm the upper third, bottom third, in the middle. I don't care. If I need to be there, and that's where the kill tree says it's to be, that's where I'm going to hunt. I think we get too focused on some of these terms out there. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Hubs, upper third of a ridge.
Mhm.
That gets you in trouble. If you focus solely on that kind of stuff and don't keep an open mind, you're missing a ton of great whitetail action, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So what it sounds like to me is you're putting a puzzle together,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sign, whatever that may be, if it's a scrape, rub line, just heavy runs, that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
so
You're putting it, I go in an area. Okay. I got, multiple runs coming together. I see trails, and we know bucks. Sometimes they travel and sometimes they don't. That has to play into it. But there's some edge and transition there. You got trails there. You got rubs there. You got straight. I will take, like, when I get in a situation where I start getting spidey senses, I will walk one of those trails out or terrain features out and 100, 200, 300 yards and connect those dots on a bigger scheme. Like that's on the macro level when I really start to break it. I mean, it's still on the micro level, but at the macro level, looking out like on Google Earth, okay, I'm looking at a block of timber that's a mile chunk. But especially in the big woods mountains where everything's a lot vaster and bigger, I will pick all that apart and bring that into that micro level, that one central location. Why it's all coming right there, and then that'll help me. Why is that sign there? Why is this location? Get my sixth sense going. I put all that together, like I said, the puzzle to figure that out.
Yeah. So when your spidey senses go off and you
Mm-hmm.
walk in that area and you're seeing like, different terrain features and edge come together, and maybe you got some blown up scrapes, and you're
Yeah.
feeling it. Um, like fine tuning that in, how long is that process for you?
Uh,
I mean, it's
I mean,
situational, but
yeah. Like this year here, the buck got killed in PA this year. I went in there one time this postseason. I found it. It was like, cool. This is they clear cut around it, but they left this point of this ridge open. But there was still a lot of structure in there. And I found a big primary scrape off the point, how everything fell into place. I'm thinking they have to come through here. I went in this year. I think it was the second hunt. I actually hunted 3 times. I hunted once. I think it was like mid-October. We had a little cold front come through. No luck. I actually set up on the spot wrong. Figured out what I did wrong. Came back in. The second day I was in there, back-to-back days. The second day I'm killing that morning. He was working scrape line. But that was like one postseason, couple hunts. Figured it out. That doesn't always usually happen. I will be in a ball game a lot of times in those areas, but the tree or one or two trees that are in there, you're trying to pick for the kill tree, that could take me multiple seasons. That's where the cameras work great. That's why I like to put cameras out for historical data, not so much to kill off of that season. I like it for historical data. I can pull that card and I can see, that time frame I'm in, end October through Thanksgiving. Okay, mature bucks are, in this area routinely these 3-4 weeks. This one time frame that's really good, and I'll keep track of that. I'm playing that all in on my camera, but a lot of times it's just ass time. Maybe I hunt that spot 3-4 times this year, 2 or 3 times next year. The third year, okay, I'm tweaking it. Now I'm going in and I'm killing maybe that third year. That's how an area just basically, to be honest, not only the kill tree. A lot of times, say a brand new area is going to take me about 3-4 years to really start to get where I'm getting comfortable, where I feel I can go in there on a morning or an afternoon or all day sit, and I'm going to consistently get on deer and possibly kill one.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's so important for people to hear that. Again, like I was saying, man, maybe it's just me, but when I made the decision that I wanted to start, killing bucks consistently,
Yeah.
I wanted that to happen right away. Because
Yeah.
I'm watching other guys on Instagram,
Yeah.
like, they're killing all the time. And
Yeah.
I want it to happen. And it's good to hear that, especially if you're just now getting in this and you don't have years of doing this, where you have spots set up that you've been refining year after year after year. When you first dedicate yourself to do something like this, it's going to be a couple years before it starts to
Yeah.
come together.
Yeah. That's what guys don't get frustrated. I mean, like we see the highlight reel on social media, so that especially new hunters or inexperienced hunters, that can get frustrated for a lot of guys. Trust me. I don't know how many times I was in a tree this year, but it's a very low odds when the opportunity comes by and you kill one. Especially in the mountains, big woods where you have, you're covering big areas. Those deer cover a lot of ground. Low deer density, that all plays into that. You hear guys going in and killed 4 bucks on 8 sits. Well, where are they hunting? Not take anything away from them. That depends where you hunt too. You got to take that into play. You get an area where there's low deer numbers, it may take you, 15, 20 hunts. It may take you 2 months to get that opportunity. That all plays into it.
Yeah, for sure. So when you get in that spot, when you see everything coming together, are you walking those trails back? Did I hear you say that? Like you're going to go and
Yep, I will walk it all. Yep, I will walk it all. Maybe I come across a creek crossing. Sometimes that leads me, like I said, something I learned from Nathan Killen, I picked up off of him, was we all like to see that hot sign. We all have that hot sign, and we think we need to be right there. Sometimes you need to be off that sign 75 yards, 100 yards. Maybe it's that creek crossing coming into that, or that point of that ridge dumping down, coming into that hot area, because maybe that plays better for access. Wind thermals, that plays better. Sometimes you get right in the middle of the pie plate and get yourself in trouble pretty quick. Yeah, you can go in that first day or two, maybe get lucky and kill. But like in a rut situation where maybe you have to play that out over a 3, 4, 5 day period, maybe in a general location, let them bucks do their circle, come in there. If you're pressuring right in the center of that, the dozer and everything else, can possibly get picked off after a while. I always tell guys, like, that pie plate, dead center is the hottest, the hot. That's all the hot sign. I like to be off that pie plate around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, on that edge where you're still in the wheelhouse. You still catch in bucks, working that edge of that system. But you're not right in the heart of it to where you're going to get busted. You can hunt multiple days in a row. A lot of times you look at that way too. Sometimes, yes, you got to be in the middle of it. That just comes with experience. You get in there and you're like, well, I can use this ditch, get right here. I can right in the heart of the action. I'm in the money. Other times, man, I'm going to cross a lot of trails. My wind's going to do this. Man, I'm really going to 80% of this. I'm going to blow up if I do it this way. So you're going to back off to where you're only screwing 30% of it up. And it's an odds game sometimes.
Yeah. So when you're walking those trails back, I mean, obviously you're trying to see like, what the bedding's looking like and all that kind of stuff. So you can understand why people are, or why the deer are moving through there. It's also for access, though, I would imagine, right? So when you're coming in, you're not blowing the deer out of there before you even get there.
I would say the number one hardest thing, like when we get into farm country, and that seems to be a little easier to work with your access, me personally. Big woods, mountains, it's a bitch. Okay. It just seems like when I find the spot, it telling me I need to be here. And I look at the access and it's like, that's going to suck.
Yeah.
There is nothing fun about going 2.5 miles, 2 miles around up a ravine in the middle of the morning. Some days it's brutal, to get in basically you're maybe hooking into a general location for the wind and stuff like that. I tell guys there is situations, I will just go and get in there. I know I need to be there. Man, I'm flirting with the devil here a little bit, but we're going. I will do that. I will cheat the system. I'm very aggressive with that, especially in a rut situation. Like I said, you can get in the heart of that sign and sometimes hurt you, but sometimes you need to get in there and kill too. If you sit back and lay back, that's going to get you in trouble too. That's where it comes to the experience, like we're saying, when to go and when not to go. That's just something you have to learn over time. I've learned, I burnt myself for the last couple of years. I've had areas where I had fantastic bucks on camera. I knew I needed to get in this area, but the wind wasn't quite right. Sometimes we forget this whole mobile craze is great. Well, you got to remember you're mobile. You can manipulate a spot too, to where you're not in the kill tree you want to be in, but you can manipulate it a little bit, 30, 40, 50 yards to where you're okay. You're out of the primary part of that kill area, but you're still in the game enough where you can kill a buck.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. Sometimes you'll just go in because access for me, actually, there's some days I can totally figure it out. And you're right. It is a pain. I'm thinking of the buck that I killed this year. The first time I hunted him, I had to go into a creek bottom and follow that for 1.5 miles, which that's 1.5 miles as the crow flies, as you're going through that and going over top of like dead trees and, you're getting wet and all that, and then climb a steep bank to get up and to, but that was the right way to do that one. That one's actually a little bit easier to understand. Yeah. I can go in the water. They're not going to smell me. I can go up a steep bank. There's nothing that's going to be going there. But that's like, for me, that's 1 in 100. Most of the time I've got to go through woods and I'm cutting trails. Like I'm risking it. And I used to get frozen because I didn't know how to get in clean.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's hard to explain how to get in clean, but I love that you said, you know what, some days you just got to go.
I mean, to be honest with you, we've all been in the woods enough at night or going in the afternoon. We've all blown deer up.
Yeah.
And we've all blown deer up and we've all killed deer right afterwards. That same day. I mean, I worry about access. It's extremely important. I'm going to preach that. That's probably the hardest part, like I said, in the mountains, big woods, because of the terrain and the clear cuts and a lot of things come into play. You got a south facing slope that's got boulders coming out. You're trying to circle around. It can be a pain in the ass, but at times, especially in a rut situation, you just got to get in there. You just got to get in there and kill sometimes.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you're not thinking about it, that might be the next step for you, is to start figuring out how do I get in and not blow it up.
Yeah. Cause there's 100 situations, like I said, where it actually thinking about your entry and exit, sometimes it's not that bad too. So you don't need to be sloppy or anything in some situations. You know, you're going to try, like I tell guys, do your best to get in there clean. It's hard not to a lot of times. Something's going to cut your trail. Something's going to blow at you, you know, but just, I guess it's a little bit of common sense comes into play. If you're hunting farm country and all deer are feeding out in a crop field and you're going to walk through a crop field in the morning to go to your stand, that's the kind of stuff you
Yeah.
don't want to do,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't bust through a bedding area trying to get to the
Yeah,
other side.
yeah. That's one thing I won't do. That's probably the biggest thing with my entry, my exit, and all that stuff. Is the last thing I want to do is go through that bedding area. That's where you want to loop around that kind of stuff. That's to me, that's where you're going to really start to hurt yourself. You start blowing up that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and just being cautious where your wind is and where.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think I heard Ryan Regan, he goes by the name of Saddle Hunter. He made a point out of saying, like, think about where they're bedded at that time for that wind.
Oh
Like
yeah,
just doing that, just a little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
of those
yeah,
things will improve your
yeah.
odds
Yes.
greatly. Yeah, awesome. So now I keep interrupting you, and I'm sorry, but it's such good stuff. And
I
yeah,
said, man, we knew we were going to get on some rabbit holes, so that's all
yeah,
right.
that's right, that's right. So what do the cameras do for you? Like, how are you using those?
Like I said, I'm a little different. There's a big argument out there right now with cameras and especially cell cams. And the cell cams, like I said, can be argued. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a guy that's going to put a cell cam up and hunt over it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I ever did, and I shot a buck, I'd be transparent about it. But
Mm-hmm.
I like my cell cams personally. Like we're talking about, I like to split my postseason in two different areas. I really like to put my cell cams in brand new areas. And be honest, I like them to hunt. I like to get that historical data and let them hunt the spot for me because I know I'm probably not going to hunt that area. So if I got these cell cams up and how I look at it, like, November 3rd, 4th, 5th rolls in, a cold front rolls in, well, the camera goes off and I got multiple shooters in an area, with a cold front coming through in
Mm-hmm.
November. I'm going to, what I do is I download the HD, the mature bucks, and I have that to save. And it's live and in time. And I up here, it gets my gears turning. I remember that stuff. I don't need to write it down. I will save the pictures, but I start to remember that area really heated up in November, that cold front in this brand new area. So that tells me I need to go back in that area and break it down to micro level. Because it just shows some potential. And what I like to do preferably is run standard SD cams on videos. A lot of times that will go into areas I'm already familiar with. I know I got hot scrape, stuff like that. I mean, I will do it in new areas too. But I love running SD cams on video mode, 30-second, like 25-second delay over a big old scrape. Man, you get a ton of information. Like I said, I like to do it in new areas too. One big thing with the cell cams, this is the probably the best thing I like about it is theft deterrent.
Yeah.
Because one thing's going to piss me off more than anything is when I go to pull a camera and it isn't there. After all the work I put in, and some asshole steals that camera. And if that's in a brand new area, I have no historical data, no ass time in tree, that is killer for us.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, woodsmanship is number one, putting boots on the ground and learning all that. But man, that sucks. You put all that time in, you get a brand new area, you put that camera in there, and some asshole stole it. With a cell cam, being that you're getting at real right now, you don't lose that historical data. That's a big advantage. For me personally, I like the cell cams. And why the big thing about running them is that theft deterrent. I never had a cell cam, me personally, stolen yet. I've had a lot looked at
Yeah.
that I guarantee if it was an SD cam would have walked off. So
Yeah. Same thing. I've never had actually, no, I'm batting 100. I've never had a camera stolen yet.
I've had quite a few.
Yeah.
Bears actually my problem. Actually, bears are my big problem.
Yeah, I see that. They tear them down, don't they?
Oh, horrible.
Yeah. So I lock all mine though too, so that helps.
Same here. I started doing that too. I started putting. I didn't, and then I started buying the cheap cable locks off Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Since I've done that, I haven't had a problem. Other than bears, I haven't had a problem.
Yeah. So what I want to point out something is that you're using that camera data, and it's really for the next year.
Yes.
And
yes.
so early on in my career, and I'm saying this because I would imagine other guys feel this way, is the fear of missing out. So let me ask you, what is the deer density in the mountains? I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it.
It's fairly low. It depends on where you're at. If there is situations with private ag within certain miles, if cover food line up in certain situations, you will get a concentration of deer. Oaks were pretty prevalent this year. And even then with the oaks amount there, I would still find concentrates on the deer in certain locations. But I mean, be honest with you, on an average day for me in the mountains, 5 or 6 deer is a decent day on an all day sit.
Yep.
There's days I've seen 15, 16 on a good day.
Mhm.
But usually it's only a handful of deer, maybe 2, 3 bucks, 2, 3 doe. That would be a pretty in the mountains deep in the big woods. That's a pretty typical day in a rut.
And how much ass time are you putting in to see a buck that you want to shoot?
If it's in the rut, we're talking that month time frame.
Yep.
Last week, 3 weeks in November. I will usually catch a glimpse, not opportunity, a
Hmm.
glimpse it depends. If the weather's cooperating,
Hmm.
if you get a good weather, every couple of days, I usually typically will get eyes on something solid,
Yep.
115, 120 better, 3 year old or better. I will see something like that every few days. It bounces around every year depending on the weather. If you get a hot 78 degree like it did 2 years ago,
Yeah,
that's tough. That's
that
real
was
tough.
tough.
I mean, this year got a little warm too, but not as bad. It's a lot of weather dependent. But like I said, every couple of days in a perfect world, it's going to be every couple of days. I'm going to catch a glimpse of something decent cruising.
So the reason why I say that is because if I'm watching you and I'm looking at all those bucks behind you, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, it's easy for you to sit back and use that data for next year. But the truth is, like, there, you're not in Iowa. You're not seeing a shooter every single day. You don't have an
No,
opportunity every single day.
no.
You are being patient. And I think a lot of guys feel this need to use a camera to like get that opportunity today. And I used to think that way too. And it actually never really resulted in me because the truth is that that picture that's in the past already.
Yeah.
And so using it the way that you do actually sets you up to be proactive the next year and be
Yes.
on top of it before they get there. And I
Yeah.
just really want to encourage guys to fight the urge to be reactive to that camera
Camera
and
will get you in trouble.
do
Yeah.
what you're doing. I started
Yes.
to implement what you're doing a
Yeah.
couple years ago.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I was down that rabbit hole too before. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. You pull an SD cam and you're like, oh, it's a week past it, but you want to get in there and hunt. The
Mhm.
sign's all dried up, or
Yeah.
whatever the situation is. So I've learned just pretty much it's historical data. Now, I do run cameras in the summer,
Hmm.
so when I pull, like, a lot of my bucks don't disperse in the mountains like you do
Yep.
in farm country. So I hold a large percentage of velvet bucks usually. So when I pull my cards, say August, September, and I have mature bucks in the area, yes, that plays into that year
Yep.
because those are my shooters for this
Yep.
upcoming season. But the majority of through the fall and this time of year, I still have some cameras out. That's for the next season, of course. And like I said, I think guys, I see some of it out there really agitates me. I know guys utilize cameras to kill, and
Hmm.
whatever. It's legal. It's your right. Whatever. But you're not learning anything. I
Yeah.
don't think you're not
Yeah.
really learning anything. And this is a tactic. I'm probably going to piss some people off here. I don't like shotgun patterning cameras
Hmm.
to kill a buck. I think that's where it crosses the line for me personally. That's just killing. I
Yep.
apologize when I'm pissing people off, but you ain't learning shit.
Yeah.
Putting 10 cameras out around a bedding area or something to kill a buck. I'm sorry. You may kill one or two doing that, but you ain't going to learn jack shit.
Yep.
That's just me personally. That's something that drives me nuts. You're just not becoming a better woodsman, in my opinion, doing that. Nothing wrong with using cameras, nothing wrong with using cell cams, but I think there's an appropriate way to use them so that we're still keeping it ethical, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's really about the journey too. Like if the result that you want to get is to be a consistent killer,
Mm-hmm.
there is no shortcut to get there.
No.
And what you think you're doing by doing something like that, it's actually not going to give you the edge, and it
No.
will dry up, and you won't be
Yeah.
consistent. If
Yeah.
you want to be consistent, you have to develop the skills. Like
Yeah.
there's no way around it.
Yeah, and I unfortunately, we see the world, the shit show we live in right now.
Hmm.
You're seeing the bans of cell cams, stuff like that. I personally think in the next few years, we are going to see cameras banned on public land
Hmm.
across the country. I hate that.
I do
I think
too,
that's liberal
actually.
bullshit.
Hmm.
I am, like I said, I don't have a problem with cell cams. I personally don't want to see them banned because
Neither do I.
you ban them, well, next year SD, and the next SD, then it's going to be this, and it's going to be that. It's all liberal bullshit.
Hmm.
So I'm not in favor of any kind of bans. But in reality, we see where everything's going. If we don't get together, we don't all come together here as hunters. they're going to ban it probably eventually on public land. There's not really much I think they can do on the private part of it, right now, because you should be able to do whatever you want on your private land. But I can see public land 3, 4, 5 years from now, even in Pennsylvania, the heritage we have and people run cameras, I can see it start getting nipped in the ass. And when it does, where are you going to be?
Yeah.
Where are you going to be if you pull them cameras? Can you go out and consistently kill once the cameras are out of the game? And I think guys got to start realizing that a little bit, just in case, we don't all come together here and do something about it. You might lose that.
Yeah, and here's correctly, it's not about like taking a stance of saying like my way is more superior than your way.
Yeah.
It's actually out of a heart of wanting other people to be successful so
Yes.
that our tradition
Yes.
goes on.
Yeah.
And
Yes. 100%. Yep.
and I know coming from where I come from, and I think PA is probably similar, like the hunting culture in Michigan, the one that I grew up in, I'll speak for myself. It was like we I didn't think like I do now. I didn't put pieces down. I didn't become I didn't try to become a master of skills and I didn't have a continuous improvement mindset. It was like I'm gonna go out in the woods. This spot looks good. I'm gonna
Yeah.
sit up here and I'm gonna shoot whatever comes by.
Yeah.
But I would also found myself in the desire of trying to get bigger bucks because I was seeing them on TV. I started buying the scent blocker suit. I had every single piece of
Same here.
any
Yeah.
way I could take a
Yeah.
shortcut.
Yes.
And I did
Yes.
that. I did that long, I did that for 10 years and I was never successful.
Yeah.
And when I finally just gave up on that stuff, and I think gear has its place.
Yes.
But right now, and I'm only saying this because I care for the people who are listening to this, if your focus is on gear or focuses on what the camera's going to do for you today, or whatever it is, and it's not these deeper skills that we're talking about in this podcast and every other podcast that happens here, you are going to spin your tires and you're not actually going to get to where you want to go. So
Yeah.
we're saying this because we care. We want you to
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah. I mean, will gear help you kill an animal? Yeah. If the clothing, I'm worse than a woman shop when it comes to hunting clothes, like Kuyu,
I am too.
Osco. I love it all, man. And I tell guys, they said, does that make you a more successful hunter? I said, yes, for the reason of it. I'm going to be out for 12 hours if it's rain, pouring, whatever. But it does help make me more comfortable, which is going to make me more focused in a tree. So that comes to play. I'm a part alone with custom gear.
Mhm.
Personally, I'm biased. Yes, best damn tree stand out there. And it's not going to squeak and pop and stuff in a situation where there's 140 incher walking in. It's not going to pop on me and I'm going to kill them compared to one from the local sporting store. So does gear help you? Absolutely. But when your whole focus is on the newest gadget and stuff like that, that's where it's going to start to hurt you as an overall hunter and as a woodsman. Because like I said, I've talked about this last couple of podcasts, is woodsmanship, we are losing it. Mm-hmm. And once we lose it, it's going to be gone. And man, that's the key. If you're a great woodsman, I don't care where you're at in this country, what you're hunting, you're going to probably be pretty successful, probably.
We're gonna disappoint some people here, I think, with this answer. How do you develop woodsmanship?
Time. Time.
Time.
Time. It just, it's I don't, like I said, I've been doing this since I was a little kid. I'm going to be 47 next month, 30 some years in the timber, on the water. It's all part of it. I don't care if you're fishing, you're hunting, you're scouting, just the time out there. You could be camping, to be honest with you. Just I'm outside in the woods in general, becoming a good woodsman. You don't necessarily need to hunt whitetail to be a good woodsman, in my opinion. You could be a bushcrafter or something like that. There's so many different things out there. Just being out in nature, I guess you can say, and just learning that. Like for guys like us and some of these guys listening, I mean, that is my second home. Yeah. When I'm comfortable, like you put me in a city, get me out of here. I am so uncomfortable in places. Like I don't want to be around stuff like that. I don't want to be around a lot of people. You put me in the woods, middle of nowhere, I am so comfortable, relaxed. And that's for me, man. That's where I thrive, is in areas like that.
Yeah. So I do want to give some hope for some people, though. So for me, I didn't get into hunting until I was 20. And I did it the wrong way until I was probably 35. And then I actually walked away for a little while. I got back into it. Man, maybe it wasn't 35. It was probably before then. I came back when I was around 37. and I'm 46 today. And I got to
Mhm.
say, in the last 6 years, my woodsmanship has developed exponentially because I spent a lot of times out there. So it doesn't take, I mean, 6 years. I am by no means do I want to try to compare woodsmanship with anybody, but in 6 years, I mean, I'm a different person out in the woods.
Yeah, and it led you to kill a buck of a lifetime this year.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yep.
that work of the last 6 years led to a buck of a lifetime.
Yep. And so you can develop it in a
Yes.
relatively short amount of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But you do got to put in the work, and it does take time. It's going to take a few years before it starts to click.
Yeah, you're going to be frustrated more than the average guy, the average farm, private or public, average property, public, private or public. It's going to get frustrating for a new guy. It gets frustrating me. I mean, trust me, I get my ass kicked just like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most of the time you're not coming home with something in the back of the truck. It's just the way it is,
Hmm.
You got to be okay with that. Because how I look at it anymore, it's about the hunt for me. It's about the chess match,
Yeah.
the process. I love that. Maybe it's my age coming out now, but man, I mean, I love killing a good buck, or I could be killing a doe for all I care. I enjoy it and I have fun with it. But man, anymore, man, this process leading up to it, oh, I live for it, man. It is so much fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, I'm gonna. I've been interrupting our conversation here, but let's think about a guy who, I mean, I run 30 cameras. How many cameras do you run?
About 30. Yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
average about 30. Yeah.
So let's think of what a guy can do to start implementing some of your stuff. Who he's not able to walk 200 miles a year, but maybe he can
Mhm.
get out 6 7 days of scouting throughout the
Yeah.
year. He's got, let's say he's got 5 cameras, because I mean, if you're
Mhm.
going to buy 5 good cameras, that's $500.
Yep.
That's a lot of money.
Mhm.
There are cheaper ones you can get out there that work just fine too.
Yeah.
But let's say he's got 5 cameras, he's got 7 days to scout. And what can he start doing? Like, can you put I know it might be hard because it's been a long time. Can you put yourself in his shoes and try to give him like a game plan to start pre-scouting?
If you're just starting out, so you got a handful of cameras, I get a lot of questions on scrapes, stuff like that. Just a simple way to see the, other than putting time in a tree, say utilizing your cameras. You know what? If you only got a couple of days to scout, get out there. You're new to this, get out there. You find a scrape, put a camera on. Walk a
Mhm.
little bit more, you find a scrape, put a camera on. Take those 5 cameras end of the year, pull them, and see what kind of intel you get.
Mhm.
You'll start to realize what's a good scrape, what isn't a good scrape. And
Yeah.
you just build off little stuff like that. What you just start to build off of. And not only for the cameras, that comes down to hunting in general. Also, say you only got a couple of days of scouting. Okay, you find a handful of decent spots. You find a couple decent camera locations, like we just said, how you can utilize those cameras on scrapes and stuff and learn. You can even put them cameras on a creek crossing just to start to educate yourself on deer movement. And what you can do is, okay, I got a handful of good spots. You hunt those spots.
Mhm.
3, 4 weren't very damn good. That
Yeah.
one was. Can you replicate that? And that's the thing there, to start putting things together. I would just start slow, start at the base, and just putting those, instead of reaching for the sky, trying to hit that home run, just start like, yeah, let the cameras actually do the work for you a little bit there. Get some historical data. Start watching deer behavior at a scrape or certain scrapes. Is it all nighttime activity? Am I getting some daylight pictures of mature bucks? Okay, why am I getting daylight pictures of mature bucks? Well, there's some pretty good diversity here, some good cover here. There's some bedding cover here. Oh, that thick cover, security cover. I'm starting to put 2 and 2 together here with cover. Then you just start building off of that kind of stuff. You start walking thick cover. You're like, man, there's a lot of scrapes and rubs along this transition around this edge. You just start to replicate that in certain situations. So over a course 3, 4, 5, 6 years, you start to put that all together. It starts to make a little bit more sense when you start, okay, you're limited on time, but over this handful of years, you start to put some pieces together that, okay, you're limited on time, but you can kind of focus in on an area and put together a little bit quicker. You can utilize your time a lot better. That's how I would play it. It's still going to take time, but over the course of time, you're going to learn it.
Is there three, like, I would say, where that guy is at? Is there three like next level um pieces of sign that he should be looking out for? Like something that guy might not normally look for. What are just like that next little thing that might bring him up to the next level?
Uh, I mean, it just depends, I guess, where you're at. Um, I mean, we all know rubs and scrapes. We
Yep.
got that. I would, me personally, when I'm looking at sign in general, if you go into an area, say you're new, you go in there and you see a big, hot, fresh rub line and or even a scrape line, okay, and you can tell that's from this season. Do you see historical data from previous seasons in that location?
Yeah.
That is a big key. You go in. I mean, I find rub lines, I find rubs, I find scrapes all through damn woods. I find hundreds, thousands in a year. But what I'm looking at is I get an area, I'm like, that's a pretty good scrape line here. I see some rubs from this year, but man, there's some old rubs. I can tell them trace been worked out pretty good. They're concaved in the bottom. I can tell they've been worked. 4 or 5 licking branches been tore up, got them ripped off. I see saplings the size of my thumb, my fingers sheared off from this year, years past. All right, that's telling me there's history in this area for bucks to come through here. They want this area for a reason over multiple years. That's an area I start keying in on, either to hunt or I start working off of that to find that location. That's something to look into is historical data. Whitetails for me, unless something really drastically pressure, like an area where I'm at clear cuts or something comes through, they're pretty well routinely every year. That's why I get a kill tree. My kill trees are pretty good every year. There will be a time period, say they're pretty much good all rut. I will get a time period when the does start popping in and bucks know that. Maybe it's a week period. It's really, really good. But outside, it's still pretty productive. You start to put that all together in an area. That's how you start to focus into a spot that's pretty killer. Building that historical data in those areas.
Yeah, you said something last year. I think it was. It was in that Jake Bush podcast about
the YouTube thing.
The sapling.
Yep. That's what I find. Yep.
That opened up something for me, man. That was awesome. That was one of those like next level little pieces. And I've walked past those saplings. I've seen them, never thought about it the way you did. And for those who didn't hear it, it takes, if you try to break a sapling, and I mean, and you're a big dude, like you got strength. It's hard to do.
And like I said, 2-year-old, it could happen. He's all wound up. I see one. Now, if I'm walking a system, an area like a rut funnel type, say, or, I'm seeing a concentrate sign, and I see half a dozen, and I see some history there, that's telling me these mature bucks like to come through here.
Yeah.
Daylight, nighttime, what is that part of the puzzle you got to figure out? But that's going to pique my interest in that area.
Yeah. So there, even if you didn't run cameras, there's historical data out there. You can look at it.
100%. They're still there. And like guys, this is something I've done over the years. I was never a big track guy, like looking at tracks. And it was Bo's, I think it's his cousin. I was talking to him. He's killed quite a few bucks the last couple of years. And Mason's his name. And he's killed some great bucks the last 5-6 years. A big part of his was tracks. I'm like, man, this dude kills consistently in the big woods mountains. And that's what I started doing the last couple of years is getting across creek crossings and stuff like that and starting. That's another piece of the puzzle. You get an area, they can't hide that. They can't hide their tracks. Now, does every big buck have a big track? Absolutely not. We know that. But man, that's an important piece of the puzzle to figure out in that area of historical data. You cut a big set of tracks in there too. You can start putting things together.
Yep. And I think also to say, like, we're talking about this individual who doesn't have a lot of time. I want to say too, like, also set your expectations accordingly. Don't get frustrated. If that's the time that you have, that's the time that you have. That's the phase of your life that you're in.
Yes.
Then shoot what gets you excited. Don't get frustrated.
Yeah.
And your time will come later on down the road.
Hey, so we're going to open up a can of worms here.
Do it.
Something that frustrates me is like the last podcast I just on, we talked about this a little bit. So we're not going to go crazy with it, but when you're just starting out, keep it low. There's nothing wrong with killing a legal buck. Nothing. Don't let anybody ever tell you otherwise. We all want to kill 200 inchers. We'd all love to kill Boone and Crockett's 150. We'd love to. It's just not realistic for a lot of us too. So you can't take that social media, whatever outside influence and pressure. Don't let that factor into your decision. Do not let it, because it takes the fun out of it. A new guy start low. Man, I got a 55-gallon garbage can out in my shed full of little bucks. They're fun. That's what I grew up at, hunting. You know what I mean? It was a blast. That's how I started. That's how I got where I'm at today, because to be a killer, you got to kill. Doe, buck, whatever. That's like me. I love shooting doe. But you want to be a killer, you got to kill deer. You just don't jump into killing boone and crockett deer, unless you're blessed with right land, which, like I
Yeah.
said, that's very few. To get to a certain point, and like, I drives me nuts is hearing people talk down on 115, 20, 25 inch deer, and it's like, man, come on, it's all location dependent,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
No, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, for sure. All right. So I want to give, and maybe this will put you on the spot a little bit, but is there anything like is that black belt level, that high level, any something new that you've kind of stumbled on over the last couple of years at all that maybe you haven't talked about yet?
I mean, the whole sapling thing was a secret I put out there. It's out there
I
now.
loved it. I loved it. It's so good.
Like, I don't see a lot of people in the big woods mountains, I guess, but that was something there. I mean, a big thing for me. I mean, I'm a big scrape guy.
Mhm.
I think once you figure out the scrape game, it's deadly.
Mhm.
To me, that is the number one thing in a whitetails world for communication, the scrape. Once you figure out the right scrapes and you know how to doctor them up or however you want to use it, man, I can't explain to you. Like, a lot of guys say, like, scrape time, it's only, most of it's nighttime activity. Man, I don't share most of my pictures. The amount of daylight activity of mature bucks I get on camera on a scrape is insane. I get just as many daylight as I do at nighttime, to be honest with you. In a rut
Yeah.
situation, and even in the velvet, I get big velvet bucks, daylight, and everything else. What I've learned is just it's about location with those, and like you're saying, black belt level.
Yeah.
I can't explain it to you, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It
That is
does.
something I visually see. I look at now. I do get thrown a curveball occasionally. This year in postseason, I found a scrape the size of the damn truck. I was like, this little licking branch the size of my pinky. I'm like, and I put a camera on. It's like, holy shit, it was unreal. And so I get thrown off still.
Yep.
Now once I put the puzzle piece together, I get it. The
Hmm.
location makes a ton of sense, and that's a big thing. Once you do it to get to that level, I learned a ton from Troy Pottinger. Troy, everybody knows Troy and his scrapes. I've learned a ton from him. I've been doing moss scrapes since probably my early 20s. I really started that game, so I'm doing a long time. But he kind of took it to another level for me
Yeah.
the last couple of years, to be honest with you. Kind of took what I knew and then threw that in the mix. And I'm telling you, the amount of daylight activity I get. The only problem is, like I said, I haven't figured out yet is, like, Troy's a master at that, of really being able to hone in and get them bucks coming in, and he's killing them off of that.
Yeah.
I haven't kind of maybe just, I don't know what it is yet, to really hone in to go in and get them coming in to kill them off like he does,
Hmm.
consistent like he does. I'm still working on that game, but camera data wise and getting daylight pictures and activity mature bucks, it's I'm going to be honest. People might say I'm full of shit. I run, like I said, roughly 30 cameras. Every one of those cameras, I got a mature buck on, probably every
Yeah.
single one. Now, I get a lot of the same bucks, don't get me wrong, in certain areas, but I would say over the course of a season, summer through to fall, I get at least one mature buck on them cameras.
So did I hear you say that you have bucks hitting it during the rut, during your rut while you're hunting?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is February 1st. I mean, after gun season, end of December and January, it was hot. Those were cycling back in second, third cycle. Fawns were coming at weight. Good Lord, there was my scrapes on fire. I mean, not all of them. It was a small percentage because that was a lot more post gun season pressure. They were near some great security cover, some steep, nasty terrain, and there was a lot of acorns. So
Mhm.
those come into play later in part when those were cycling back in and the fawns were coming in. But I'm telling you, I had some great bucks that made it through. Daylight, chasing on camera, it was pretty awesome. But the rut wise, I mean, yeah, everybody talks about that last week of October. I've talked about it before. Mid October is a
Mhm.
dynamite time to kill a buck in daylight on a scrape. That 11, 12, 13th and around there, I have a ton of data, have a ton of action on there. But for me, a scrape, to be honest, it is year round. You can tell even when they shed their horns. I usually typically have my cameras pulled by now, so I don't get a lot of post shed type
Mhm.
pictures. I do have some out now, but it's year round. It is year round, these scrapes. Yes, they heat up different times a year, but you'd be surprised in the summertime. I will have bucks in full velvet come in, work at scrape like it's November, and piss in it, and it is crazy. Guys wouldn't believe me. I mean, I've had them literally end of July scrape the bottom of the scrape out, piss in it, and it's like July 27th.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen much, but it happens. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I've been running probably from listening to you and a few others like you. I've been running on cameras on scrapes for the last
Mhm.
few years, and that's I'm seeing it too. What I've heard though typically is like, scrapes go dead during the rut. Like they start to pull off of them. And I don't quite see that either. Like I actually see them hitting it.
Yeah, it is a little different activity, a
Yeah,
little
it's
different
it's not the
action.
working, but they're going to it.
Yeah, usually it's like I said, everything's focused. Me, the lick and branch is the most important thing. It's not. Sometimes guys see the leaves in the scrape, and if you'd run
Hmm.
a camera on there, you'd be surprised how much action sometimes is on there. They're still hitting the lick and branch, the does and the bucks and everything. So you got to play in that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, is it like the last week, like I said, of October, that aggression in the
Hmm.
first couple of days of November? Not necessarily, but sometimes it is. I got bucks November 9th, 10th, beat the shit out of it and
Yeah.
pissing.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's not as I'm trying to think of the word is aggression, I guess
Hmm.
would be the word. But they're still utilizing it, still using it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, wanted to know if you want to talk a little bit about fitness because I think we are on the older side of
Mhm.
on the
Yeah.
scale. And, and I've doing this and Instagram. It's been actually there's a lot of I think we can say a lot of negative things about social media. I'll say something positive about it. I've been able to meet really awesome people like you
Yeah.
and a lot of like-minded people. I've been able to go scouting with them and they've all 10, 12, 13 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And what's fun is actually kind of like blowing their mind a little bit. Now, I will tell
Yeah.
you, I can't jump from tree to tree like they can, not quite the same, but I can put in the miles and
Yeah.
I attributed that to fitness. I got hurt last year, but I know it's big for you. And there was
Yeah.
something really cool on Instagram last year where everybody was kind
Yeah.
of tagging everybody and holding
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
accountable. But do you think would you go as far as to say that being fit actually helps you be a better killer?
Absolutely, 100%. That's me in my opinion. People say, "Ah, you don't have to be." When I'm on average, I'm going back in a mile and a half, say, in the
Mhm.
morning, all day sitting in a stand all day sucks.
It's
I
hard.
don't care. It sucks.
Hmm.
And if your diet's in check, I mean, mine goes off in the fall. Don't get me
Hmm.
wrong, but I try to stay somewhat sane. But just being in good shape and condition, even like to me, the older you get, the more important it is, to be honest with you. Then you end up killing something. You gotta get them out of there, and just the daily grind of the hunt itself and the season wears on you. We all know it. I don't even care what kind of shape you're in; it wears you out.
Hmm.
But the better shape you are, the better you take care of yourself. To me, you're more focused in the situation. That
Yes.
big buck you've been waiting for last 4 or 5 weeks, it finally is coming together. You're not dicking around your phone. You're not half asleep. You're paying attention maybe a little bit more than that guy that's not in shape and not taking care of himself. That's just my opinion with that.
Yeah, energy level for sure is
Yeah,
much
oh,
higher.
100%. Yeah.
Your mind's clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, for
Yeah. I mean,
sure.
it just physical fitness. Like I said, it's been a big part of me for I think it's been 25 years now, wherever it's been. And, my wife's big into it. It's a big part of my lifestyle. And, I tell guys the diet is king. The diet is number one. The workout is second. But man, if you can even just tighten up a little bit of stuff, like I know we were all in that the Instagram tag and stuff, everybody
Yeah.
else. And, any of them guys who listen to this, I haven't seen all you guys for a while. So let's get back on board here. Let's not wait till July. Let's get going here.
So full disclosure, man, I got hurt last year and I've packed on the pounds. And
Yeah, yeah,
the year before I was in the best shape of my life.
yeah,
So I right before we got on here, I was working out. So
yeah,
I'm gonna dedicate myself going forward. I'm gonna get back into tip top. So it'll be fun
yeah,
to see everybody get at it.
yeah. Everybody get back into it again. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Anything you want to leave the listeners with before we wrap it up? And we've spent about an hour now. So
You know what? I think what just something I've been talking about lately, the importance of woodsmanship.
yeah,
Getting back to that, the importance of, and we all want to kill a good buck, but at the end of the day, the world does not end if you do not kill a buck.
yeah.
Enjoy the hunt. Older we get, older our families get. our dads and stuff like that, you start to realize we're here only for a short period of time. If you're solely going to focus on the prize, it's this can get pretty frustrating. You're not going to enjoy it. We've all been down that trap.
Mm-hmm.
And just take it from me, I've been on the industry side of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Been blessed to kill a few whitetails. But man, it's not worth it stressing out about it. Go enjoy the hunt. I can't stress that enough, how important that is. End of the day, it's going to be about the memories you had with your friends, yourself, your father, your mother, whoever you take out in the woods with your kids. That's what's about at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think hunting is so much better with a relationship, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And putting that stuff first and not making this your identity. This isn't where
Yeah.
you find your value. It's
Yeah.
it's in all the important stuff. And I'm glad everybody, it seems right now there's a lot of people saying that. And
Yeah. You know, we're
it's
going
good
down
to
the wrong
hear.
road. Yeah, because I
Hmm.
think we are. The technology is becoming a major problem. Technology, like we said, deer,
Hmm.
that's great. We are starting to cross a line with this.
Hmm.
People got to realize, what was it? I think the NDA just come out. Was it 4% of the country buys a hunting license? 4%.
Wow.
And they said it's like 80% do support hunting or trapping as a form of management. So that leaves a 16% of liberals that anti-hunters.
Yep.
So we are outnumbered there, but we all know they're all whack jobs. So that leaves the 80% of the country that can be very swayed either way to each side of the
Hmm.
group. We have to remember that for our future of our kids. How we represent ourselves, how we post a picture up on Instagram or say Facebook, social
Hmm.
media, we have to remember that because that 80% is watching us, what we're doing. So we got to remember that.
Yeah, and I think if your identity is tied up in this too, it's going to prevent you from being successful.
Yeah.
And if you just enjoy, if you get out there and learn how to enjoy it, the door really, at least for me, that's what happened. I
Yeah.
used to stress out trying to, hit that bar that was set out there, or maybe I set for myself.
Yeah.
And once I got away from that and I realized my value, comes from above and
Yep. Yep.
all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's amazing how all of a sudden I started killing deer. And I don't kill, I
Isn't it?
mean, I'm not a
Yep.
giant killer, but I have fun killing what I kill.
Yeah. Same here. Yep.
So
Same here.
yeah,
Yep.
yep, awesome, man. Well, I can't appreciate it enough, and I'll end it with this and just say, like, I've learned so much from you, and you've been a really accessible individual, and you've helped out a lot of people, and that's rare in the industry, and I just really appreciate you and appreciate you coming on today, and yeah, man. How we mentioned it earlier, but how does anybody get a hold of you if they want to, or how can they see what you're
I'm
doing on Saturday?
Yeah, Moose 1720 on Instagram. I have Facebook, but I'd be honest, I don't hardly go on there. But you can message me anytime on Instagram, Moose 1720. I will talk to anybody. If you have questions or whatever, usually a lot of times I end up on the phone with somebody
Yeah.
talking. I have no problem with that. So just hit me up on there. And like I said, pretty much every Saturday I'm out scouting and I try to break down what I'm doing to help educate somebody.
Yeah, it's a big help. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming on and thanks for coming to the dojo and listening this week. We're dropping every Wednesday. We will be back next Wednesday as well. Have a good one.